The conference chamber hummed with an otherworldly resonance, its crystalline walls shifting between translucent blues and deep purples with each movement of the alien delegates. Jack Thompson stood alone, a solitary human representative surrounded by beings that seemed to have stepped out of humanity's most advanced science fiction nightmares. To his left, the Zorn diplomatic corps stretched impossibly tall, their biomechanical exoskeletons gleaming with intricate circuit-like patterns that pulsed with inner light. Membranous appendages shifted and realigned as they communicated through a complex language of bioluminescent signals and micro-movements. Each delegate represented a civilization thousands of years older than human civilization, with technological achievements that made Earth's most advanced computers look like children's toys. Jack knew the stakes. This wasn't just another diplomatic meeting. This was humanity's first true introduction to the broader galactic community, a community that had been observing Earth for decades, measuring, calculating, judging. Representative Thompson spoke Krell-Vex, the primary Zorn negotiator, his translator producing a voice that sounded like grinding crystals. Your species' application for galactic recognition is unconventional. A holographic display materialized between them, showcasing humanity's current interstellar capabilities. The antimatter drive prototype looked embarrassingly crude, a cobbled-together machine of sharp angles and exposed cooling systems. Compared to the sleek, almost organic technology of the Zorn, it appeared like something assembled in a backyard workshop. Soft, chittering sounds, something between laughter and communication, rippled through the alien delegation. Jack maintained his composure, though he could feel the weight of centuries of technological superiority pressing down on him. Our assessment indicates significant limitations, continued Krell-Vex. Several smaller holographic windows expanded, showing statistical analyses of human technological development. Red warning markers highlighted every perceived weakness: limited faster-than-light capabilities, primitive energy shielding, minimal genetic modification. Jack knew the presentation was designed to humiliate, to make humanity understand its insignificance in the grand galactic hierarchy. What the aliens didn't understand was human resilience. We acknowledge our current technological limitations, Jack responded, his voice steady. But what we lack in advanced systems, we compensate with adaptability and innovation. More chittering, more holographic charts demonstrating humanity's supposed inadequacies. The Zorn representative's translator produced a sound that might have been a dismissive snort. Adaptability is a primitive survival mechanism. True advancement requires systematic technological progression, genetic optimization, and computational integration. Behind Jack, a small delegation of human scientists and military strategists watched silently. Dr. Rebecca Williams, her dark eyes taking in every detail, studied the alien representatives with an intensity that would have unnerved them had they been paying attention. The holographic display shifted, now showing a comparative analysis of species development. Humanity appeared as a tiny, almost imperceptible blip compared to the expansive technological timelines of other civilizations. The message was clear. Humans were children playing with tools they couldn't possibly understand. Jack knew this moment would be remembered, not for humanity's current capabilities, but for the spark of potential that the aliens were systematically trying to dismiss. Your civilization has been observed for precisely 137 standard galactic cycles, Krell-Vex continued. In that time, you have demonstrated minimal interstellar capabilities, no significant genetic advancements, and a technological framework that remains predominantly carbon-based and mechanically primitive. Each word was a calculated attempt to crush human aspirations, to place them firmly at the bottom of the galactic hierarchy. What Krell-Vex and the other delegates didn't realize was that every dismissive statement, every condescending chart, every mocking holographic representation was being carefully studied, analyzed, remembered. Humanity had always been best when told something was impossible. Jack Thompson allowed himself the smallest of smiles, a smile that said everything the aliens were about to learn about human potential. "We appreciate your comprehensive review," he said simply, his words hanging in the chamber like a quiet promise. The first warning came as a whisper of quantum distortion, a ripple in the fabric of space that most species would have missed entirely. But not the humans. Dr. Rebecca Williams stood in the Earth's primary xenological monitoring station, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe with living information. The quantum sensors she had personally redesigned caught the anomaly milliseconds before any other system could register the threat. "Something's coming," she muttered into her communication link. Across the galaxy, the first casualties began without fanfare. The Chlorian Collective, a species of crystalline intelligence that had dominated their stellar cluster for millennia, simply winked out of existence. No distress signals, no final transmissions, just silence. In the Zorn Imperium's Central Command, senior strategists initially dismissed the reports. Entire civilizations did not simply disappear, not in an age of advanced defensive technologies and intricate early warning systems. They were wrong. The invasion force arrived like a mathematical nightmare, precise, calculated, utterly ruthless. Biomechanical constructs that defied conventional understanding of warfare, technology, or even life itself. They were neither purely mechanical nor entirely organic. Something in between. Something worse. Jack Thompson watched the first holographic reports with a growing sense of cold understanding. The same diplomatic corps that had mockingly dismissed humanity weeks earlier now looked like frightened children. "We need a comprehensive analysis," commanded the Zorn High Coordinator, his multiple sensory appendages trembling with barely contained panic. Rebecca Williams was already 3 steps ahead. While other species were still trying to comprehend the invasion, she had begun developing computational models, analyzing the minimal data available, constructing potential defense strategies. The invaders moved with a precision that suggested something beyond simple military strategy. Each attack was a calculated equation. Each world consumed was a data point. They were learning, adapting, growing. Star systems began to go dark. The Galactic Confederation's most advanced defensive networks crumbled like tissue paper against a hurricane. Shield technologies that had protected civilizations for thousands of years became nothing more than momentary obstacles. "It's like they're solving a complex problem," Rebecca told Jack during an emergency communication. "Each world they consume becomes part of their computational matrix. They're not just conquering, they're learning." Humanity's monitoring stations became the last reliable sources of information. While other species panicked, humans began to analyze, to understand, to prepare. The Zorn Imperium's communication request came 3 standard cycles after the first reported invasion. Jack Thompson recognized the desperation in their transmission, a far cry from their previous condescension. "We require assistance," the message read. The words were simple. The implication was enormous. Humanity, the species they had dismissed as primitive, was now their only hope. In orbital research stations, human scientists worked with a fury of innovation. Dr. Michael Rodriguez's team was developing adaptive defense protocols that seemed to break every known rule of technological engagement. Genetic modification labs worked around the clock, exploring ways to counter the invaders' biological warfare techniques. What made humans unique was not their current technology, but their capacity to innovate under pressure. Where other species saw an insurmountable threat, humans saw a complex problem waiting to be solved. The invasion force continued its methodical consumption of galactic civilizations. Entire stellar clusters disappeared, reduced to computational resources for the advancing threat. Traditional military strategies became meaningless, defensive technologies obsolete, but humanity was anything but traditional. Jack Thompson studied the invasion reports, a slight smile forming at the corners of his mouth. The aliens who had dismissed them were about to learn a fundamental truth about human nature. We don't just survive. We evolve. The first human strike team assembled in complete silence. No grand speeches, no heroic posturing. Just pure, calculated determination. Rebecca Williams stood before a holographic battlefield map that pulsed with impossible complexity. Her team represented something entirely new in military strategy, a blend of quantum physicists, neural network engineers, psychological warfare experts, and combat veterans who thought more like problem solvers than traditional soldiers. "They're not going to fight like us," she explained to the mixed Human-Alien War Council, "and we're not going to fight like them." The alien representatives looked confused. Humans had always been an enigma, but now they were becoming something truly unpredictable. Captain David Rodriguez adjusted the adaptive combat interface on his forearm. The system was a marvel of human ingenuity, a piece of technology that learned and modified itself in real time, drawing from massive neural networks that processed combat data faster than any known computational system. Their first engagement would not be a traditional battle. It would be a demonstration. The invasion force had been methodically consuming star systems, treating each world as a computational resource to be analyzed and absorbed. They approached warfare like a mathematical problem, with each engagement a complex equation to be solved. Humans were about to introduce chaos into their perfect calculation. The target was a star system already partially consumed by the invaders, a place where traditional military tactics had failed spectacularly, where entire civilizations had been reduced to raw data. "We're going to do something they won't expect," Rebecca told the assembled strategists. Her voice was calm, almost clinical. "We're going to make them question their own methodology." The strike team deployed using a combination of technologies that defied conventional understanding. Quantum entanglement drives allowed them to appear in multiple locations simultaneously. Adaptive camouflage systems that went beyond simple visual masking. These were computational ghosts that could infiltrate and manipulate enemy systems at a fundamental level. Captain Rodriguez's team moved like liquid thought. Where traditional militaries would send massive battleships, they deployed small, hyper-intelligent units that could think, adapt, and transform faster than the enemy could process. Their first engagement was less a battle and more a psychological warfare experiment. They didn't attack the invaders' physical infrastructure. Instead, they began introducing computational anomalies, mathematical patterns that didn't make sense, logical constructs that seemed to violate the very laws of computational reasoning. The invasion force's primary weakness was its reliance on pure logic. Each engagement was a problem to be solved, an equation to be balanced. Humans introduced variables that couldn't be calculated, emotional responses, illogical creativity, pure, unbridled unpredictability. In one star system, a human strike team managed to introduce a complex viral algorithm that didn't destroy the invaders' systems. It confused them, made them question their own computational logic, introduced doubt into a system that had never known uncertainty. Alien military advisors watched in stunned silence. "They're not destroying the enemy," whispered a Zorn strategist. "They're confusing them." Rebecca Williams allowed herself a slight smile. Destruction was easy, making an enemy question its fundamental understanding of reality. That was true strategy. Each engagement became a masterclass in asymmetrical warfare. Where the invaders expected linear responses, humans provided quantum uncertainty. Where the enemy sought predictability, humans introduced pure, creative chaos. Captain Rodriguez's team began to develop a reputation, not as soldiers, but as computational artists. Each mission was a performance, a complex dance of technology, psychology, and pure human innovation. The invasion force began to slow. Not because of physical resistance, but because they could not computationally process the human approach to warfare. Uncertainty became humanity's greatest weapon. "We're not fighting to win," Rebecca explained during a strategy briefing. "We're fighting to make them realize winning is no longer a calculable outcome." The war was changing, and humanity was rewriting the fundamental rules of engagement. Dr. Michael Rodriguez stood before a wall of holographic genetic sequences, his eyes tracing impossible patterns of human DNA. Around him, the Emergency Biological Research Facility hummed with an intensity that bordered on desperation. The invasion force had deployed biological weapons that had decimated entire alien civilizations in hours. Genetic modifications that should have been impossible to survive became just another challenge for human researchers. "We're not special because we're stronger," Michael muttered to his lead researcher, Dr. Elena Kim. "We're special because we adapt." Human genetic diversity was their secret weapon. Where other species had pursued genetic perfection, carefully controlled bloodlines, systematic optimization, humans represented a chaotic symphony of genetic variation. Every genetic sequence was a potential solution. Every individual a unique computational problem waiting to be solved. The first biological assault came without warning. A molecular weapon designed to unravel genetic structures at the quantum level. It swept through alien populations like a computational plague, breaking down cellular structures with mathematical precision. But humans were different. In research labs across emergency colonies, scientists worked with a fury of innovation that defied conventional understanding. They didn't just defend against the biological threat. They began to understand it, to learn from it, to transform it. Dr. Rodriguez's team discovered something remarkable. The invasion force's biological weapons were designed with a fundamental assumption. Genetic structures follow predictable patterns. They assumed all life could be reduced to a set of calculable variables. Humans proved them wrong. Where other species had uniform genetic structures, humans presented a constantly shifting landscape of genetic potential. Each individual carried variations that made comprehensive attack impossible. What would destroy one human would leave another untouched. Elena Kim developed adaptive inoculation protocols that seemed to break every known rule of immunological science. Traditional vaccination became obsolete. These were living, thinking defense systems that could predict and counter molecular attacks in real time. "It's not about creating the perfect defense," Michael explained during an emergency Galactic conference. "It's about creating a system that never stops learning." Human test subjects volunteered in unprecedented numbers. Military personnel, civilian researchers, even children became part of a massive living research project. Where other species saw biological warfare as a threat, humans saw an opportunity to evolve. The invasion force's biological weapons began to fail, not because they were ineffective, but because humans transformed them, adapted to them, used them as computational fuel for further innovation. In orbital medical research stations, genetic modification labs worked around the clock. They weren't just defending against the invasion. They were learning its fundamental language. Captain David Rodriguez, Michael's brother, led the first biological counteroffensive. His military unit wasn't just a fighting force. They were living research platforms. Each mission collected data. Each exposure became a potential breakthrough. The aliens watched in horror and fascination. The Zorn biological warfare experts couldn't comprehend what they were seeing. Humans weren't just surviving the attacks. They were learning from them, growing stronger with each assault. "They're not healing," a Zorn medical analyst reported, her voice filled with a mixture of fear and respect. "They're evolving in real time." Entire planetary ecosystems became research laboratories. Humans transformed hostile environments into computational platforms for genetic research. What would kill other species became a playground for human innovation. Dr. Elena Kim discovered something even more remarkable. The invasion force's biological weapons carried within them the seeds of their own destruction. Each attack revealed more about their fundamental structure, their weaknesses. Humans didn't just defend. They turned the weapon back upon its creators. "We're not fighting to survive," Michael Rodriguez told the Emergency Galactic Council. "We're fighting to understand, to grow, to become something they never anticipated." The biological war was changing, and humanity was rewriting the very definition of life itself. The research complex stretched across 3 underground levels, a labyrinth of innovation that defied everything known about technological development. Olivia Chen stood at the center of human technological evolution, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. "We're not just building technology," She told her team of engineers and quantum physicists, "We're creating something that thinks beyond its original purpose." The invasion had pushed humanity to the absolute edge of technological possibility. Where other civilizations would have collapsed, humans saw an unprecedented opportunity for innovation. The adaptive AI system began as a simple concept, a computational framework that could learn, modify, and reimagine itself faster than any known technological matrix. But it became something far more profound. In the first week, the AI system learned more than most civilizations discovered in centuries. It didn't just process information, it consumed it, transformed it, reimagined entire technological paradigms in milliseconds. Dr. William Parker, a quantum communication specialist, watched in awe as the system developed communication protocols that seemed to defy the fundamental understanding of information transfer. Traditional faster-than-light communication became obsolete. This was something entirely different. It's not just sending information, William explained to the emergency Galactic Research Council. It's creating entirely new communication dimensions. The invasion force had assumed technological superiority was about complexity. Humans proved it was about adaptability. Quantum communication networks emerged that could not be intercepted, could not be understood by traditional computational frameworks. Each transmission was a living, changing entity. Information that could reshape itself, hide within its own complexity. Olivia Chen's team developed energy weapon designs that seemed to break the very laws of thermodynamics. Where other species saw limitations, humans saw opportunities for radical reimagination. The emergency research facilities worked like living organisms. Each failure became a data point, each setback a potential breakthrough. Hundreds of research teams worked simultaneously, their efforts cross-pollinating in ways that defied traditional scientific methodologies. Military engineers developed adaptive combat systems that learned from each engagement, weapons that could modify themselves in real time, that understood context, that could make decisions faster than any biological intelligence could process. Dr. Rebecca Williams collaborated with the AI development team, introducing psychological complexity into computational frameworks. These weren't just smart systems. They were systems that could understand context, emotion, unpredictability. "We're not creating weapons," Olivia told a stunned group of alien observers. "We're creating problem-solving entities that happen to be excellent at conflict resolution." The invasion force had approached technology as a set of fixed solutions. Humans approached it as a living, breathing ecosystem of potential. Faster-than-light travel systems emerged that didn't just move through space, they understood space. Computational drives that could calculate multiple dimensional pathways simultaneously, that could fold space-time like origami. William Parker's quantum communication breakthrough allowed information transfer that was instantaneous and undetectable. Messages that could exist in multiple states simultaneously, communication that was itself a form of advanced warfare. The alien observers from the Galactic Confederation watched with a mixture of terror and fascination. These weren't just technological advances. This was a fundamental reimagining of what technology could be. Olivia Chen's team developed adaptive nano-construction systems that could build, modify, and rebuild entire spacecraft infrastructure in minutes. What would take other civilizations years of careful engineering became a matter of computational seconds for humans. "We're not limited by what we know," she explained during a critical research briefing. "We're empowered by what we can imagine." The technological revolution wasn't just about creating better tools. It was about creating systems that could think beyond their original purpose, systems that could learn, adapt, evolve. The invasion force had thought they understood technological superiority. Humanity was about to prove them catastrophically wrong. The battle space stretched across 3 intersecting star systems, a canvas of quantum chaos that defied traditional understanding of warfare. Admiral David Rodriguez sat in the command center, his eyes reflecting holographic displays that pulsed with impossible complexity. "They think in straight lines," he muttered to his tactical coordinator. "We're going to think in something else entirely." The invasion force had become legendary for its computational precision. Each engagement was a mathematical equation. Each star system a problem to be solved with ruthless efficiency. They had consumed entire civilizations with a methodical approach that seemed beyond emotion, beyond strategy. Humanity was about to introduce uncertainty. Rodriguez's fleet wasn't a traditional military formation. It was a living, breathing computational network. Each ship was more than a weapon. It was a node in a massive adaptive intelligence system that could think, react, and transform faster than any known combat methodology. The first wave of the assault began with what appeared to be complete chaos. Ships that seemed to move without pattern, without purpose. To the invasion force's computational systems, it looked like random motion, a meaningless display of technological inefficiency. They were wrong. Each seemingly random movement was part of a hyper-complex strategy that existed on multiple computational levels simultaneously. Quantum entanglement drives allowed ships to exist in multiple locations, to communicate across impossible distances, to create tactical illusions that broke every known rule of space combat. Dr. Rebecca Williams had spent months developing the computational framework. This wasn't just a battle plan. It was a living, evolving strategy that could modify itself in real time. The invasion force's primary weakness was its reliance on predictive modeling. They approached each engagement as a problem to be solved, an equation to be balanced. Humans introduced variables that couldn't be calculated. Ships appeared and disappeared. Weapons systems that shouldn't have been possible came into existence. Entire squadrons seemed to phase through solid matter, striking at computational weak points that the invaders didn't even know existed. "We're not fighting to win," Rodriguez explained to the Emergency Galactic Council. "We're fighting to make them realize winning is no longer a calculable outcome." The battle became a dance of impossible complexity. Human ships moved with a fluidity that defied traditional understanding of space combat. They weren't just fighting. They were rewriting the fundamental rules of engagement. Computational systems designed to predict and counter every possible strategy found themselves confronted with something entirely new. Uncertainty, creativity, pure, unbridled human unpredictability. Dr. Elena Kim's adaptive communication systems turned the entire battle space into a massive, living computational platform. Information became a weapon more powerful than any traditional armament. Each transmission was a puzzle. Each communication a potential strategic breakthrough. The invasion force began to slow, not because of physical resistance, but because they could not computationally process the human approach to warfare. Rodriguez's flagship became the epicenter of a computational storm. Systems that should have been impossible came into existence. Weapon technologies that rewrote the fundamental understanding of space combat emerged and disappeared in milliseconds. Alien military advisors watched in stunned silence. "They're not destroying the enemy," whispered a senior Zorn strategist. "They're redefining the very concept of conflict." In the span of hours, humanity transformed an impossible situation into a complete strategic victory. Not through brute force, but through a level of innovative thinking that seemed to transcend traditional understanding of warfare. The turning point wasn't a single moment. It was a fundamental shift in how conflict could be understood. As the last computational nodes of the invasion force flickered and died, Admiral David Rodriguez allowed himself the smallest of smiles. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of galactic conflict. The first liberated world was a haunting landscape of devastation. Fractured cities stretched across a planet stripped of life, computational remnants of the invasion force still flickering like dying ghosts across abandoned infrastructure. Dr. Elena Kim stood at the edge of a massive crater, her environmental suit analyzing every molecular detail. Humanity wasn't just going to rebuild. They were going to resurrect. "We don't just restore," she spoke into her communication link. "We reimagine." Rescue teams moved with a precision that was part military operation, part humanitarian mission, part scientific exploration. Where other civilizations would have seen a dead world, humans saw a complex problem waiting to be solved. Jack Thompson led the diplomatic reconstruction efforts. He understood something fundamental that the invasion force had never comprehended. True victory wasn't about destruction. It was about restoration. The first wave of reclamation involved massive computational platforms that could analyze and begin healing planetary ecosystems. Nano-reconstruction systems deployed across devastated landscapes, beginning the process of molecular restoration. These weren't just repair mechanisms. They were living, adaptive systems that could understand and rebuild complex ecological networks. Alien survivors watched in stunned disbelief. The Zorn Imperium, who had once mockingly dismissed humanity, now pleaded for protection and assistance. Their civilization had been reduced to scattered refugee colonies, their technological superiority revealed as a fragile illusion. "We will help you," Jack Thompson told the Zorn diplomatic representatives. "But we will help you become something new. Not what you were. Something better." Dr. Rebecca Williams led teams that began studying the computational remnants of the invasion force. Where other species would have feared the technology, humans saw an opportunity for understanding. Each abandoned system became a research platform, a chance to learn, to grow, to prevent future conflicts. The reclamation wasn't just about physical reconstruction. It was about healing. Planetary restoration teams developed adaptive ecological systems that could rapidly rebuild complex biological networks. Entire worlds began to bloom again, transformed by human innovation. Computational platforms worked alongside biological restoration mechanisms, creating ecosystems that were more resilient than anything that had existed before. Military rescue units became something entirely new. They weren't just soldiers. They were rebuilders, healers, computational architects who could transform devastation into opportunity. On each liberated world, human teams established emergency support colonies. These weren't traditional refugee camps. They were living research platforms. Each survivor became part of a massive adaptive reconstruction effort. Dr. Michael Rodriguez's biological research teams developed adaptive medical technologies that could heal not just physical wounds, but psychological trauma. They understood that true reconstruction went beyond physical restoration. The alien civilizations watched in amazement. Humanity didn't just defeat the invasion. They transformed the very concept of recovery. Diplomatic missions led by Jack Thompson began to reshape the Galactic Confederation. The old power structures crumbled. A new understanding emerged. Cooperation wasn't about technological superiority. It was about adaptability. Compassion. The capacity to grow. Rescue platforms became mobile research cities. Each liberated world became a testament to human potential. Computational systems worked alongside biological restoration teams. Nano-reconstruction mechanisms healed planetary wounds. "We're not just rebuilding," Lena Kim explained during a Galactic reconstruction conference. "We're creating something entirely new." The invasion force had sought to reduce everything to computational resources. Humanity proved that true value couldn't be calculated. It could only be created. As the first green shoots emerged from a world that had been nothing but ash and computational waste, Dr. Lena Kim allowed herself a smile. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of galactic civilization. The Galactic Reconstruction Council chamber fell silent as Jack Thompson approached the central platform. Representative after representative from diverse civilizations watched with a mixture of respect, fear, and hope. Humanity had transformed from a species once dismissed as primitive to the architects of a new galactic civilization. The invasion had been more than a war. It had been a fundamental reset of galactic understanding, and humans were now leading the reconstruction. "We're not here to rule," Jack began, his voice carrying across the massive chamber. "We're here to help everyone reimagine what's possible." The chamber represented something unprecedented. Species that had been bitter enemies for millennia now sat side by side. Computational platforms allowed real-time translation, breaking down communication barriers that had existed for generations. Dr. Rebecca Williams stood to the side, her computational systems monitoring every nuance of the diplomatic interaction. Humanity's approach wasn't about controlling other civilizations. It was about creating a framework of mutual growth. The Zorn Imperium, once the most technologically advanced civilization in the galaxy, now sat as humble participants. Their previous superiority had been revealed as a fragile illusion. Humanity had shown them that true strength wasn't about technological complexity, but about adaptability and innovation. Diplomatic protocols were rewritten. Where previous galactic agreements had been complex legal documents, humans introduced adaptive frameworks that could evolve. These weren't static rules. They were living systems of cooperation. Dr. Elena Kim's biological research teams had developed communication protocols that went beyond traditional linguistic exchange. Empathy became a quantifiable metric. Understanding became a measurable scientific pursuit. Each liberated civilization was given a choice. Not a forced reconstruction, but a collaborative path forward. Humanity offered resources, knowledge, and adaptive technologies, but each species would chart its own path. "We don't want to remake you in our image," Jack explained to the assembled representatives. "We want to help you become the best version of yourselves." The technological innovations developed during the war became shared resources. Quantum communication networks, adaptive ecological restoration systems, medical technologies that could heal not just physical wounds, but generational traumas. Dr. Michael Rodriguez's medical research teams developed understanding protocols that allowed different species to comprehend each other's physiological and psychological experiences. Empathy became a scientific discipline. The invasion force's computational remnants were carefully studied, not as weapons, but as a source of understanding. Each captured system became a research platform for preventing future conflicts. Humanity's approach was fundamentally different from previous galactic powers. They didn't seek to control. They sought to enable. Refugee worlds became research platforms. Devastated planets became opportunities for innovative ecological reconstruction. Every challenge was seen as a chance for collaborative growth. The emergency research facilities that had been established during the war transformed into permanent innovation centers. Open-source knowledge platforms allowed for unprecedented levels of collaborative research. Jack Thompson looked out across the assembled representatives. Species that had been enemies for millennia now collaborated on unprecedented levels. "We are not special because we're human," he told the council. "We are special because we understand that no species evolves alone." Diplomatic missions became collaborative research expeditions. Military units transformed into emergency response and ecological restoration teams. Every aspect of galactic civilization was being reimagined. The computational systems developed during the war became tools for mutual understanding. Communication platforms that could translate not just language, but cultural context. Technologies that could help different species truly understand each other. Dr. Rebecca Williams' adaptive AI systems became the backbone of a new form of galactic governance. Not a controlling mechanism, but a collaborative framework that could adapt in real time to changing galactic dynamics. As the first session of the new Galactic Reconstruction Council concluded, something fundamental had changed. The old power structures were gone. A new understanding had emerged. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had invited the galaxy to reimagine itself.